So there you have the new Microburst from Tempest Knives. I said there are aspects of it. Knives have to be designed for the hands they're intended to be in. KC is a smaller guy than me. This is not an insult, this is a fact of life. He has smaller hands. He doesn't have nerve damage in his hands and arms the way I do. And he has designed a very functional knife that I could see a lot of people being able to get a lot of good use out of. Now, when I have been carrying this, instead of trying to use the thumb stud the way it's designed, I slow roll it because that doesn't hurt me. There's nothing wrong with slow rolling if that's the way you want to open a knife. It's less scary to people who are non-knife people to see that. And that just kind of puts a twinge up my arm. It doesn't actually hurt. How did I have that sitting in there this way? Losing my mind. There we go. But the way it's designed, it is very comfortable for slightly smaller hands than mine. I actually have had a couple of people with smaller hands than me hold it, flick it, use it for a couple of cuts here in the house, and it worked well for them. I think that Casey has a good future in designing knives. He hasn't designed one for me yet. And he probably won't because, well, designers tend to stick in a standardized, or in a zone. I use this often because it's a good indicator of how big my hands are for people that are around knives. This is a BK7. No, this is a BK9. Excuse me while I'm stupid. This is a BK9. This is not a brand new knife. It's actually been outside once or twice. Or 1,000 times.
Whole bunch.
The Becker handles, Becker large handles, if you look at a lot of the videos where these knives are featured, you'll see people grabbing them and it looks like this. This is a big knife. When I grab it, there's no extra space. It fits me, but I am touching the finger guard and the little hook at the back that's designed so it doesn't slip out of your hand. So when I say that this is a little bit small for me, I'm not being mean to it. It's just a fact of life. Like I said, because of that forward choil, the way you can grip it, the jimping that is there, I was able to get enough of a good solid control grip that I did not cut through my toothpick. And you saw that was a one take. I just decided to do that while we were sitting here. I hadn't even thought of it before. So it does have a lot of really good features. It's really well made. It is not something that I will be buying. I do not say that to dissuade anyone else, because a lot of people are going to look at this and say, dang, BK9, well, I don't want one of them. So, like I said, there are millions of people that carry pocket knives. There are a lot of pocket knife designs. They can't all fit everyone the same. KC, I hope you watch this. I really enjoyed spending some time with this knife. I am really impressed with the design overall. And if I had my oldest son's hands, my oldest son is not built like me. Smaller guy. That would fit him perfectly. I bet you he would actually like one.
I'm the youngest, by the way.
Yeah, Jack is my youngest, and he's slightly smaller but built like... Can you see him?
You can see his head poking up. Modi wanted to say hi, guys.
Come here. the production manager wanted to come in and see if we were doing our job right. He's a good dog. Back to the knife. I will have a link to Casey's social media stuff and to Tempest Knives in the description. This is a really well-made knife. There are things about it that don't fit me. I'm very, very glad that I got the chance to do a pass around on a new design. Right now, that knife is still in pre-order. If you go to the link on Tempest Knives, they have it on pre-order if you're interested. The production ones will have the better steel. Okay, you are not
being helpful.
Being helpful.
Modi, Modi.
But I'm sorry, I got distracted for a moment. Remember that the best equipment in the world does not do you any good if you don't practice with it, if you don't have the skills to use it. So get yourself out into the woods with your gear. Enjoy yourself, enjoy the woods, do something kind for someone, which brings up the shirt I'm wearing. I have strange and crazy friends, and I like it that way. And I'm not going to say which one of those Steven is, and I'm only going to say Steven because I don't want to be blasting somebody's name. But he saw this shirt and thought that I needed it.
Disabled but deadly.
So it's good to have friends that are on the same weird as you. Get out in the woods, have fun, have a good day, be safe, do something kind for someone. Okay, the star of today's video is the Microburst, which is the latest product from Casey at KnivesFAST, and the company is Tempest Knives. And I will have a link to Tempest Knives in the description of the video, and also to Casey's social media. He's very active and very willing to talk about his knives, so if you have any questions that I don't answer, he will happily talk to you about it. He don't push it, but he's glad to talk about it. Now, this is on pre-order right now, which means this is not a production model. This is a prototype. Because it's a prototype, there is a very important difference between this and the final product that makes some of the testing that I normally would do to form an opinion kind of irrelevant. That difference is the blade steel on this is D2. And D2 is a good steel. I have a lot of knives with D2 steel. But the final product is going to have 14C28N, which is a better steel. So the tests that I really couldn't do on it, well, I did, but they have limited meaning, is one, how sharp it came, and not the other thing. This did not come to me from a factory or from KC. This is a pass around. I'm, I think, the 4th or 5th person to have this. And so when it came to me, it had already cut things. It had a decent edge on it, but I did put it on my strop, which brought it back to really sharp. But then again, that's on D2. 14C actually holds an edge better. I did some cut tests with it, but 14C would be holding the edge longer. So how long it cut, how many pieces of paracord I could cut before it started to dull, was kind of irrelevant. It didn't matter because this is the wrong steel. But this is what the knife will look like. It'll just be in a slightly better steel. A little more resistance to corrosion and a little more edge retention on the 14C28. Down to its stats. It has a 3-inch blade. It's overall 7 inches. The blade steel thickness is 0.12 of an inch. Obviously, by looking at it, it's a modified sheep's foot. 4-inch handle, black micarta scales. The micarta on this it has the micarta feel and the micarta grippiness to it. My fingertips were slightly damp one of the times I picked it up, and they just like stuck to it, which is what micarta is good for. But it doesn't have the really rough, like, well, I don't have one handy. The really rough feel that some micarta does. This is more of a linen micarta or maybe a denim, as opposed to like burlap micarta, which feels rough like a burlap sack. It is 3.25 ounces. It has ceramic ball bearings, which means it is really, really slick. Now I'm going to do this right now, and I may do it one more time, but thumb studs cause nerve pain up into my arms, so I'm not going to do this a lot, but watch how smoothly this comes out. That is not assisted opening. That is just the way it works. That is ceramic ball bearings right there. Detent ball, the detent on it, if you just want to pull. My wife thought there was a magnet in there that held it, because it actually, like, as soon as that detent ball gets close to the detent, it sucks it in. And that is very good retention. That is not going to come open accidentally. But if you want to grip it, break that detent ball, it just drops open. What I like to call my buck opening. I know other people have different names for it.
I looked in there with a flashlight. There is actually a detent ball.
Okay. Well, there again, because this is not mine, I did not take it apart. And there are 3 or 4 other videos on this knife. I did not watch any of them. This came to me as if I had never seen it, except for Casey holding up and say, "Hey, look, I've made a new knife." If it is important to you, and sometimes it is, the OEM on this is Kubi. So if you've ever held a Kubi knife, they're a good quality company. They made this knife. Casey designed it, he put his name on it, and he's selling it, but he needed a factory, he didn't have one. And if you do not care for the clip that came on it, Lynch Northwest sells a Spyderco wire clip that does fit it. Now this is a wire clip. It's really strong, got good bounce to it. The wire clips are nice because when you are putting them in the pocket, they will ride up over it easily. And then that's how much is sticking out when you... Whoop, didn't have anything. That is how much is showing when that's riding in your pocket. I like this bag because it's really good indicator of what's going to be showing in your pocket. So, on to my impressions. When I was using it to cut, I noticed that if I put my finger in the proper position that you would think for a knife, it's actually got the little, that's the cutout for the lock, but it's also a natural place for a finger to fall. I get 3 1/4 finger grip, or 3 1/4 finger grip, and this is not really very comfortable to me. Although putting my hand there, my thumb does fall exactly on the jimping. It has a finger choil. I have big old beefy sausage fingers. If I put my finger in there, it fits. I'm close to that cutting edge. Ooh, I'm bad at where cameras go. I am close to that cutting edge, but not getting it. Now the jimping is a little bit on the back side of my thumb. So if this were something I was going to carry every day, I would want the jimping. There we go. I would want this jimping to come up to about mid-blade. But that's my personal preference. The fact that there's jimping on it at all is better than a lot of knives give us. The pivot on this is really strong. If you look, I hate trying to line things up with cameras. That is Casey's Tempest Knives pivot. It's the same one he's had on it on the other knife. It does have a a lanyard hole built into the butt. The way it is it's a backspacer and then another small backspacer, and there is a tiny little pin in there that you can drop a lanyard through if you are a lanyard type person. I am not. Because it's made by Kubi, you're going to get a nice solid lockup. The lockup on it goes almost to the 50% point. That gives you good security. There is no side-to-side wiggle at all. No up and down blade play at all. When you close it up, now like I said, I'm not the first person to get this. This has been used by several other people and it is still dead centered. Being sent around in the pass around group gives close to a year's worth of use and fiddling with and fidgeting and testing in just a few weeks. It's also a way for the maker to get some feedback, so I am going to say things like, if it were me, I'd put the jimping further up. If it were me, I would want a second method of deploying. Because having just the thumb studs, for me, is painful. A lot of people love just thumb studs. Casey's last knife was the pinion, and its method of deployment was the hole and fuller that could be used either for thumb rolls or reverse finger flicks. But
the gator eye.
The gator eye, Jack said. Now going back to using it, because at this point I would talk about the blade steel. On this one I did. I would talk about how well it held, retained its edge, how easy it was to strop back to a sharp edge. If I had been using it for weeks instead of a week, I would probably say how easy it was to hone the edge before stropping, because at that point you're going to have a little bit of rolling. You're going to need to hone it instead of just stropping. But it's D2. It's not the 14. That's 14C that's going to be coming on it, so we'll go past that. But while I was gripping it, now I have some big beefy hands. When I grip this with my finger up in that choil, that is a solid grip. I have no concerns that it's going to slip. I have very good control because my finger is up in that choil. I made a couple of feather sticks with this, and it feather sticked really well. I cut paracord with it. It cut really well. The thing about feather sticking is it is quite often less about the blade and more about the hand holding it. And why I say that is, if you have a handle and you can't get a good grip on, and in your hand it's feeling sloppy, then you're not going to be able to feather stick. If you have a good solid grip, then you can feather stick. I just decided to do this, and it may not work because I didn't try it with this knife before, and I have cut through a few times when I was doing this impromptu. But one thing I like to do is feather stick toothpicks. Oops, I cut too far. See, it takes control, and the control comes from the grip. You moved. I was going to try to show my thing. Is that in focus? I just feather sticked a toothpick with this knife. So when I tell people, oh, I feather stick toothpicks, they're like, yeah, right. No, I just feather sticked a toothpick with that knife. So with the ability to do that, I'm going to say this knife has a very good, solid grip. I would like it if this jimping went up a little bit better, but I really like how much meat there is right here, so that when that rolls into my fingers and it meets up against my thumb, I've got a solid grip all the way across that. I think that was one thing I said about the pinion, was that it's a little bit narrow in the back here where it slopes up. This actually doesn't. This slopes down and gives you a little bit right in that section right here. It gives you a little bit better grip. So I really do like the shape of this one. I always am going to love the sheep's foot, modified or not. It's got a... The grind on it is pretty good. It's, like I said, when it changes blade steel, that will make a big difference in edge retention and in the difficulty of bringing that edge back. And 14C is very good for that. Now, because this is something no one else has had, no one can say, oh, that fit my hand really well. I'm going to show you a couple of things just to give you an idea. So I don't knock them off the table. Choo Choo is going to go sit on my desk. I will put... No, I don't want to put that in there because I'm about to show things that match it. Okay, this has a 3-inch blade, so I tried to find things with a 3-inch blade that I have seen other people talk about. I know that other people have had in hand. This is the Asher Flashback. And it also has exactly a 3-inch blade. So if you line up pivot to pivot, tip to tip, and you can see here where the difference in the blade geometry, the difference in the height of the blade, changed the way it looks, and the difference in the shape of the handle. I mean, there's substantially more to grab here than there is here, even though it's a little longer. The second one shows that even more. This is a 3.2-inch blade, and I guarantee you this will make people more that are not knife people more worried than the Asher will. Pivot to pivot, just a little bit longer. This is an Off-Grid Knives Cayman, and you can see where even more so than the Microburst. God dang, I hate my brain sometimes. It has a taller blade geometry. These are both full flats. This is a high saber. Really aggressive swedge on it. Much more pointy. Even though it's not that much bigger of a knife, it looks scarier. But it's also really fun to play with because it's got really good action. And this is one that's been on a lot of videos. It's a 3.1-inch blade. Although it is a cleaver, it very closely resembles. And this has a lot more handle on it. The ratio of blade to handle here is leaning really heavy to the blade, to the handle. That is the Buck Highline. This is the O-Knife Splint, and this, even more so than the Asher, has a very unassuming, unthreatening blade geometry. Here, let me move this out of the way and put that up next to that. Going pivot to pivot. It is a 2.97, so even though it kind of looks bigger, it's actually a shorter blade by 0.03. And the last one I'm going to bring in to look at, that wasn't the knife that failed, that was my thumb. God dang it. One that I don't bring out very often for that exact reason, that has 3.2-inch blade. And this is the Kaiser PPY. And I really wish it had a better deployment for me because it is a really, really nice knife. But that right there, these are all, clean that up, All these are pivot to pivot. That will give you an idea of the size and shape of the handle, the size and shape of the blade, the geometry of the cheek. Hopefully you have or have been able to at least hold one of these at some point. Go back to the top. Hello everyone, this is Douglas with Other Than Intended Purpose. Jack's behind the camera, and we have a first for the channel. Mostly this is reserved for big channels with thousands of subscribers, but good old American know who, I got on the pass around list for the new, not yet released Microburst by Tempest Knives. I've been using it around the house a lot, and because the weather's been terrible, but I've been using it for the last right at a week, and so we're going to give our opinions, impressions, and ideas for this knife as soon as we compare it.